Every intervention or family meeting then is conceptually an effort in drawing people together, people that are close to your loved one, a spouse, parents, grandparents, siblings, aunties, uncles, friends, maybe the boss, the job, coworkers, to collaborate and change the course of history. Whatever your specific situation, remember this: there is strength in numbers, and in intervention, we're able to do together what we're just not able to do individually. And so everything in the family meeting will go positively if you're able to follow the model. Your efforts are definitely going to be enhanced, grounding the work in genuine love and affection, and not just hoping for the best, but actually planning for the best, acting for the best. And remember this: hope is really useful, but hope alone is not the plan. Invitational intervention is an evidence-based plan that will serve you in getting this job done if you'll just trust this process. I want to speak now a little bit more about the setting, the environment in which we have the family meeting. And as I look back, I remember I've had crazy intervention surroundings, including a barn, a home where a goat was tied to the fridge inside, a strip club, a funeral home, a cemetery, a hospital, not a surprise, probably hospital, jail. But as we look together at the setting for the invitation based intervention that you're working on, you'll want to plan to hold the family meeting in a familiar surroundings, and that's usually at someone's home, and most often it's where the ILO lives. And you want to make it easy for them to show up. It's really important that you hear this. We want to plan to make it very easy for them to show up. So making a plan that the meeting is going to be 3 hours away by a bus or something is not aligned with this notion. We keep our wits about us and we follow the plan. The setting then serves to enhance and make the ILO and the group feel safe and really as comfortable as possible. Have food present, drinks, no alcohol. You'd think it goes without saying, but it goes with saying, so I'm saying it. The seating arrangement isn't a huge deal. I like to suggest the two whom I imagine will be the most powerful in the room, those sit close to the ILO. Remembering this, you won't screw this up by having people in the wrong seats. In the past, when I started the work many years ago, I would get sort of obsessed or focused on where people were going to sit, and then really what I learned is it's not critical. I do think it's important to put the most negative person in the room, if you're stuck with a negative person in the room, the farthest from the ILO, including like in the barn or outside. And I say that with a little bit of humor, but honestly, if there's someone that is really a negative person and is not bringing what you want, which is love and compassion and determination to the family meeting, it's okay to ask them to not join and suggest that if they stay at home by the phone, that would be one way that they could be available as a non-attending party that could be useful. So if you frame it like, if you stay home, you could stay as a person that will suggest the ILO calls you to ask if you think it's a good idea that they go to treatment or the like. That sort of drops me in the doom and gloom spot. I want us to really focus on the positives too, because the sad bits, the negative bits, those are the easiest parts to grab onto. And in my interventions, there's actually lots of laughter and love and light. And so if you're finding that the stories that you're practicing of the eyewitness accounts are very doom and gloomy and have no balance of, I remember when you were 5 and you wanted to be a veterinarian and you would be out with grandpa playing with the calves and you were milking them with him. And, you said, I want to be a farmer just like you. And then somewhere along the way, things got a lot more difficult, right? But bringing to the table and into the room memories that are really buoyant and beautiful, and not just the eyewitness accounts that have only the dark spots. And as we think about the change message for the intervention, again, it goes something like this. You've struggled. We love you. If you could have done it on your own, you would have done it on your own. So time's up for that way. We didn't know what to do, so we made a plan to have a family meeting, and we're doing it with or without you. We are on the move. Recovery is afoot. And the intervention is an opportunity to present eyewitness accounts to you so that you can receive it and hear from us, because we love you and we know that you're suffering. Let us help. The change message doesn't say, God, you're such a screw up. You're such a disappointment. We're the cavalry, and we're there to arrive not only with a emotionally charged message of truth and determination, but also humor and love and light. And our mission is to express love, but with a demand of yes attached to it. So sticking to that mission is a key part of this revolution that's about to take place. Like any revolutions, it requires the use of some tools. And so bringing in a bulldozer, for example, is not the tool that I want anyone to use. The tools that we do use are eyewitness accounts. Those are, what have you seen? What are your fears? And what is your hope? We don't use formal written letters during the family meeting. We speak eye to eye, heart to heart. I never want the power people fretting over a written letter with their nose buried in it. I want them to speak to their loved one directly and connect as we do. Consider just how few things are better than an eyewitness account of, what you've seen, the struggle, the strife, the promise of possibilities of recovery, and how there's so much at stake in this moment. And just say yes. So we ask those questions with that in mind. The goal is singular, not to therapize them, not to shame them, not to help them really in the moment, other than to help them say yes to our change plan. Because we're not the doctors, we're not the therapists, we're not the help agents, other than to get them ready to say yes. What have you seen? What are your fears? And what is your hope? Those are our talking points and our tools that we use again and again and again. Sticking to the mission is a key part of it. And if you get distracted or one of your members moves down out of line, just interrupt, move them back in line, or say, hey, this is what I do actually in the intervention. Sometimes I'll clap just to get people's attention if I want to stop the narrative that's being presented, to reel it back in. One thing that's so important in the intervention are details. And I know that the power of an eyewitness account is in the details. And here's one example. Years ago, I had a great friend called Aaron. He worked with me for a couple of years. He was a poet, a hardworking man in long-term recovery until he wasn't. I'll never forget the day his mom called and she left a voicemail saying that he had died. And her words, I'll never forget. She said, he collapsed suddenly on the sidewalk. I came to learn a very different and more detailed version of the story when his sister filled in the blanks that the mom's voicemail didn't. And she told me that after a 6-day relapse on meth, Aaron was in full-blown psychosis. The relapse was just awful. He lost himself really quickly. He became he had very florid psychosis very quickly. And in a hotel room on a high floor there, he went to the window, opened it, and flung himself out the window. And then he fell, crashing into a heap on the sidewalk. And thankfully, he didn't kill anyone. And I don't really think he killed himself, but it was a different narrative than he collapsed suddenly on the sidewalk. And if you compare those two stories, I want you to tell the second story. I want you to tell the one where the details lead the charge and evoke emotion and memory and promise lost. So in that way, I think that's a pretty stark example of how you can tell the same story, but in incredibly different ways. The second way, as my dad would say, God is in the details. God is in the details. And that just means that the power is in the details. And so similarly, grab the details and don't let go of them. Make sure that they come out of your mouth into the room and land in a way that will help your loved one say yes. Your eyewitness account will not be graded, but it must evoke emotion and memory. Really, this is the level. This is the level bar. Is it will not be graded, but it's got to evoke memory. It's got to evoke emotion. Remember, the details count, not from a written page, but eye to eye, heart to heart, as you connect with your loved one in a way that is moving. And the movement we want is for them to say yes. So in preparation for the intervention, jot down your examples, those answers to the questions. What have you seen? What are your fears? And what's your hope? I want you to spend time with them, practicing how you'll share them in detail, with detail. Imagine how you're going to share it in the room. So when you speak it out loud at the intervention, it's not going to be the first time that you speak it. I want you to practice with yourself or with the dog or with somebody that you care and trust, so that when you deliver it in the family meeting, that it has passion and memory and evokes a response that helps your identified loved one say yes and breaks through both minimization and the lack of necessity for help at this time. Another thing I want to just encourage you to think on and have it at the ready is one of the three questions is, what have you seen? And I want you to think of one of your favorite memories of your loved one, such as, hey, when you were 10 and I remember I couldn't find you and I was looking all around the house and I went into I opened the wardrobe and there you were. And you started laughing and you had your copy of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And it was the second time you'd read it and you must have been 10, and I remember how happy you were that day and so delighted that I found you. And now you're lost in a totally different way. And I want to help you find yourself, right? And that version of a story evokes both, real personal touch and details, but also the passion of someone that loves another. And with your eyewitness account, you're painting a picture. You're not going for consequences. You're not going for the pulling of relationships, like I'll never talk to you again if you don't accept help today. But instead, you're focusing on the emotion and the memory and the love that will be in the room. And trust me, consequences and that stuff, those are easy to pull out. You can always pull those out. But this focus on story and emotion and memory and the promise that you can get help and change is the power of this invitational intervention. When we start the intervention, trust me, the threat of consequences and dire responses from us will be in the air. So we don't even need to speak them and focus on them. Most interventions that I lead, we don't even get to consequences. So whatever you do, don't call your loved one out in a shaming way. And you know what I mean, for stupid stuff that they've done, or blame them for being crazy or breaking stuff. It will only make them defend. And our goal, what's our goal? We have one goal: to help them say yes to help. One way to do that is to tell the story like, it freaked me out when, and then fill in the blank. I felt afraid for our family because I haven't seen you for a long time, but then your sister has been telling me that, right? And then fill in the blank. And this will clue them into the fact that their actions are affecting others, but also that we're all talking to each other, that the days of secrets and withholding and partial truths without details have ended. And what's replaced them is a real curiosity about how we can work together and leverage our relationships and the power of the group to help the ones we love and help ourselves at the same time. Just know this: you're doing great. You're going to get through this, and you're not going to make it worse. I promise. And I'm really proud of you that you're circled around and standing with your loved ones to help one who's sick and suffering.